Many families have inherited treasures, but have you ever heard of the tradition of passing down the skull from generation to generation? I asked Little Azure why he licks that person's skull. I didn't expect Little Azure to say that the man is also a guardian of the tomb. He is a mobile graveyard with many, many ancestors floating around him. So, I opened his skull and ate up all the ancestors in his brain. Upon hearing this, Miao Qianqian and I looked puzzled. His ancestors are actually in his brain. At this moment, Zhao, the half-immortal, who was standing beside us, provided an explanation. I have heard that some families with unsuccessful fortunes would use an evil curse to turn their skull into a spiritual tablet, inviting the Yin spirits of their ancestors from generations past to reside inside it, for ancestral blessings. And each eldest son from generation to generation must remove their own skull and replace it with that ancestral skull's spiritual tablet. Throughout the generations, they share a single piece of skull with all ancestors enshrined in it, ensuring good fortune for the family. However, these secrets are typically only known by the eldest son. Zhang Mutian is likely unaware of this. Now that the ancestral souls have been consumed, she says the family's fortune has been devoured as well. After listening to Zhao, the half-immortal's explanation, I now understand it myself. It's like she dug up someone else's ancestral grave, which is an unforgivable act considered extremely unethical. Little Azure, on the other hand, shrugged and said, "Little Azure is not unethical at all. That man was actually doing some outrageous things behind the scenes. The stinky tofu chain he opened was soaked in sewage water. I couldn't overlook it, so I consumed his Yin spirit." Upon hearing this, Miao Qianqian and Su Taoyao both felt nauseous and said they would never eat stinky tofu again in the future. Zhao, the half-immortal, also stated that telling Little Azure to eat Yin spirit, an ancestor of his family, was deserved punishment for him. With the protection of ancestors, but not doing righteous deeds, it is unbearable by the heavens. Little Azure can be considered as enforcing justice for the heavens. In this case, it seems that Zhang Mutian's elder brother will not be in life-threatening danger. However, I still need to warn her not to do bad deeds again. As for the skull passed down from ancestors, it can only be cultivated again in their generation. But these are not the main points. Little Azure, if you can eat Yin spirit, can you also eat evil spirits? No, I got a stomachache from eating evil spirits. Little Azure does not eat evil spirits. Upon receiving this response, I couldn't help but sigh. But thinking about it, it makes sense. Rare evil spirits like Shenlei are not something a little girl can digest. It seems I will have to find another solution. Then I helped Little Azure untie while apologizing. We were too reckless just now and almost hurt you. We apologize to you. Also, you are not safe elsewhere. You should stay here with us in the future. We will take care of you. Upon hearing this, Little Azure smiled and said, Okay. Will you give me delicious food? I've seen it. Inchi, you have the most delicious food around you. At the mention of this, I instantly felt chills down my spine, and my whole body felt unwell. Afterward, I instructed Zhang Mutian to have her brother terminate the business of selling stinky tofu with sewage to save his life. Zhang Mutian was very flustered and naturally agreed to it. Of course, I kept the part about concealing the spiritual charm hidden. Little Azure is very skilled but lacks worldly experience. Running around recklessly could easily cause trouble. So I left her in the shop to live with us. Having such a powerful dark path expert as a partner is something that is hard to come by. Dangerous ghost flying in the sky, lantern murder evil art floating head hex. A woman rushed into my shop in a panic today, saying she was being chased by someone using the most terrifying floating head hex. The woman's name is Yin Mei. She is of Central African descent and works as a brewer of snake bone wine. She usually needs to hire people to catch snakes in northeast China. She had some conflicts with the villagers there recently, which may have attracted unwanted attention. When I heard that she catches snakes in northeast China, I frowned. In some places in northeast China, snakes are regarded as one of the 5 animal immortals. They believe that snakes are spiritual beings, known as Snake Immortal or Green Dragon Bodhisattva. This woman is obviously crossing a taboo. But Yin hesitated and mumbled. We usually negotiate with the villagers in advance. We also go to specific places to catch snakes without touching their heads. Normally, we don't disturb the villagers, but that time, we accidentally killed a snake immortal worshipped by someone in their home. But we have already apologized and compensated. It shouldn't come to a death penalty, right? Mr. Chung, you must save me. I haven't been able to sleep for several nights. The floating head hex comes to me every night after midnight. Fortunately, there is a bodhisattva statue in my house, so the head cannot enter. But I don't think the bodhisattva can hold on much longer. I'm going crazy too. Saving one life surpasses building a 7-story pagoda. I beg you to save me. Not saving someone in danger is equivalent to murder. 80% of the money I earned has been donated to impoverished children in Africa. I don't deserve to die for my sins. I face Yin-mei's plea. I've thought about it. By Little Snow's life hangs in the balance. Logically, we shouldn't complicate matters. However, there is currently no way to save by Little Snow. Let's focus on saving those we can help right now. So I asked her to send me the address, and we will go there tonight to check on her. After I send him away again, I turned around and asked Little Azure if she knew about floating head hex, while Little Azure was munching on something. She turned her head and said that floating head hex seemed to have been mentioned by my sister before, and it's quite popular in the Miao region. Our family practices shamanism, and there has been some communication with them. Floating head hex seems to have explained the principles to me before. The so-called floating head hex is actually the human skin lantern. To perform the floating head hex, you first need a head. However, a human head is too heavy to fly, so you have to carefully scoop out the brain and flesh inside with a spoon, then grind the skull thin to reduce weight. The processed human head needs to be soaked in a special potion for 49 days. But because the success rate is very low, usually 7 or 8 heads need to be soaked at the same time to succeed. Then dry the human heads. The thin skull inside becomes the frame of the lantern, and the outer skin becomes extremely strong and serves as the lantern's cover. The last and most important step is the final crafting process. Inject the soul of the person who was originally killed back into the human head lantern, and only when the vengeful spirit flies and the lantern can kill people in the floating head hex, the process is considered complete. Therefore, every Dark Curse master who plays the floating head hex, they are all skilled lantern masters. I asked Little Azure if this floating head hex had any weaknesses, and how we should crack it. Little Azure said that if you want to talk about weaknesses, the Dark Curse master is not well guarded when controlling the floating head hex, but they usually hide their true self and are hard to find. Upon hearing this, Miao Qianqian immediately stood up and laughed, saying, "You should have said so earlier. I was so scared of the floating head hex. How can I not handle an unarmed and unprepared person? I will electrocute the guy to death. That's settled. You deal with the floating head hex. I will take care of the Dark Curse master, and we split the money 50-50. Seeing her like this, I couldn't help but sigh in my heart. A woman who values money over her life is truly terrifying. At this moment, Little Azure suggested, "Brother don't you have a Yin artifact walnut? I can hide at a safe distance, guaranteed not to be discovered, use my supervision to aim, and shoot the floating head hex down with a slingshot." I felt that this method was trustworthy as soon as I heard it, so I immediately agreed. I also gave her a big thumbs up. But Little Azure let out a sigh. Floating head hex will not show up for no reason. I need someone to lure him out. Seeing Miao Qianqian and Little Azure grinning evilly at me, I knew they were plotting against me. But since they both have schemes, I'll reluctantly be the bait. Although I have a feeling that I'll be tricked. Later we arrived at the warehouse where Yin-mei was located. I saw her chop off the snake's head with one stroke, splitting it in half. She reached out and pulled out the entrails. The whole process was done in one go. After fermenting the wine, she turned slightly embarrassed and said, I didn't finish some work during the day, so I had to invite you to the warehouse first. It's a bit unsightly for you to see all this. I said it's okay. Just act as usual. If we were to intrude into your home recklessly, we might be noticed by the other party. Anyway, you go back home first. We'll be waiting nearby. Then I turned and walked out of the warehouse, ready to meet this dark curse master. Everything is ready. Miao Qianqian has gone to find the dark curse master. Next, it's up to me and Little Azure. I waved to Little Azure on the rooftop. I should be visible to Little Azure from this distance. A person's head floated over not far away. Seeing the target appear, I picked up a stone and threw it over. With a bang, it hit the head. The head only paused for a moment. It turned its head and pounced towards me. I was also quite scared by the appearance of this flying head. I turned and ran as fast as I could. I shouted for Little Azure to hurry. The next second, a walnut shot down. But it was easily dodged by Fei too. Seeing this scene, I feel it's over. There's only one chance. Am I really going to be in trouble this time? At this moment, another walnut was shot. The walnut flew head-on and pierced straight through. The entire skull exploded like a watermelon. Hair and shattered bones were scattered all over the floor. I took a deep breath to calm down. I looked at the two walnuts on the ground and suddenly understood. The first time was just a test. The second time was the real deal. Spirit artifact Little Azure, this little spiritual creature is indeed reliable. So I stood up and gave a thumbs up to Little Azure on the rooftop. Little Azure also smiled proudly. But the next second, she suddenly looked terrified and pointed behind me. I turned around to look. I looked and darn it, it turned out to be another severed head with a piece of paper in its mouth. I quickly took a few steps back, thinking that a walnut might offer some temporary protection. However, without the high penetrating power brought by long-range sniping, I probably can't break through it. Am I really done for this time? Just as I confronted the flying head, Little Azure shouted for me to hold on, as she descended immediately. Unexpectedly, at that moment, the flying head suddenly opened its mouth and let go of the piece of paper it held in its mouth. Written on top was the bold question. May I ask which colleague this is? You dare to ruin Mr. Hua's business. Believe it or not, I will use some tricks. Tonight, you will undoubtedly die. As soon as I saw that I met a peer, I knew that this time it was going to be troublesome. Just as I was getting ready to face a tough battle, this troublemaker actually flew away. Could it be that it just came over to say hello? But things are definitely not that simple. Since Dark Curse Master can come provoke us, it means he's fine. If he's fine, then Miao Qianqian must be in trouble. Sure enough, the next second I received a distress message from Miao Qianqian. She's been tied up by that Dark Curse Master, and is now at Yin Mei's house. Received the message, and Little Azure and I immediately rushed to Yin Mei's house. But there seems to be no one here. Neither Dark Curse Master nor Yin Mei is here. But screams for help from Miao Qianqian can be heard in the room. Little Azure and I followed the sound and found the room. At this moment, Little Azure seemed to perceive something and suddenly said, Brother you go save Sister Qian. Little Azure is hungry. I'll go inside and eat the evil spirits on her bodhisattva first. I nodded and let her go. After all, Little Azure could become stronger after eating those evil spirits. Later, I found Miao Qianqian tied up under the bed. I helped her untie the ropes. At this moment, the door suddenly opened and someone came in. Miao Qianqian and I hurriedly hid under the bed. When I looked up, I found that it was Yin Mei. I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. But just as I was about to go out, Miao Qianqian stopped me and asked me to wait. There is one more person. I and Miao Qianqian were lying under the bed and saw Yin Mei being intimate with a man. I couldn't help but comment. Being chased by floating head hex, but still in the mood for this. This girl sure is bold. The key is we still don't know why we were hiding under someone's bed to peek. Now things are awkward. But gradually things went awry. The man on the bed suddenly let out a scream. What was that? How come there's a face with teeth under you? Suddenly a piranha appeared and split the man's cucumber in half. Then, with the disappearance of the screams, the man died on the bed. Miao Qianqian and I hid under the bed. Although we didn't know what had happened, we were covered in cold sweat. The Dark Curse Master tied Miao Qianqian here, and even gave Qianqian a chance to contact us with her phone to make us come here. It's probably to let us discover the secret of Yin Mei. Little Azure in the opposite room made a shushing gesture to me at that time. I nodded, and then pointed to Little Azure in the opposite room to signal Miao Qianqian to observe quietly and not act rashly. Unexpectedly, Yin Mei suddenly lowered her head at this moment. This startled both of us. Shortly after, Miao Qianqian and I were tied up by her. Yin Mei calmly said, "After finishing up just now, I saw a note pasted outside the house saying there were people inside. It turns out it was the two of you. I thought we were friends, but you actually spied on my secrets." Hearing this, I quickly expressed that I also work for Darkpath. I can understand that you use your evil curse to punish bad men and castrate them. I fully support it. But Yin Mei gave a cold smile. Do you think I would believe you? Since you saw it, don't blame me. You saw the fate of that man just now. You will end up like him. Hearing these words, I panicked immediately. I subconsciously clenched my legs together. Please, please spare us. My dear, we helped you. Let us go. From now on, we'll go our separate ways and won't interfere with each other. At this moment, Miao Qianqian also noticed the strangeness below Yin Mei and asked with some confusion, "What's that thing under you?" Yin Mei smiled faintly and said, "This thing? This is the Yin Tooth. Have you heard of it before?" Upon hearing the term, Yin Tooth, I recalled related legends I had heard before. Those Yin Tooth witches are enchanting and seductive, lure men, then use their Yin Tooth to bite off their private parts and consume them, which is extremely cruel. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but gasp. I then stated that I had heard of it, but why would you bring this up? Yin Mei gave a faint smile. "Mr. Chung, do you still remember my identity?" Before I could say anything, Miao Qianqian figured it out. "You mentioned that you are of Chinese and African descent. You come from an ancient tribe in Africa. You have undergone circumcision, so you are seeking revenge on society. You guessed right, but only half right. In many parts of Africa, female genital mutilation is still prevalent. People cut off girls' genital organs, stitch up the wounds, and leave only a tiny hole as small as a matchstick. The purpose of FGM is to provide men with a reliable method to verify the virginity of a bride. However, women have to endure the pain of wound tearing, healing, and tearing again repeatedly. The cycle continues like this. However, female genital mutilation is just the foundation of this evil curse. Several years ago, I met an Amerindian shaman. It was from that moment that I became a witch with a Yin Tooth. This evil curse bears some resemblance to Mr. Cheng's ghost tattoo. However, we use branding irons instead. She attached the soul of a cannibalistic mermaid to the branding iron. Once branded with the cannibalistic mermaid on the lower body, the ritual will be complete. The ascetic rules of primitive religion consider the presence of a vagina between a woman's legs as something that leads men astray. They believe women should not have an interest in sex, which is the basis of chastity. It is because of these foolish ideas that my life has been ruined. So I want those men to also experience what it's like to have their genitals cut off. Is Mr. Chung interested in me? I feel terrible hearing her say that. Fortunately, at this moment, Miao Qianqian delivered a straight kick to her, sending her flying out. But this kick did not cause any harm to her. Yin Mei slowly stood up. Her whole body is filled with Yin energy. She walked towards us again. At this moment, Little Azure hiding behind the door shot out the walnut. The walnut shot straight into her legs. Yin Mei let out a painful cry. Upon seeing this, I immediately shouted, "Little Azure, the branding iron formation on her lower body has been broken, leaving only a Yin spirit of a man-eating fish. Take care of her now. Upon hearing this, little Azure immediately broke in, smashing the door with a single slap. But Yin may also summon the man-eating fish Yin spirit. Just as the two were fighting, I took the opportunity to untie the ropes on my hands. I also helped Miao Qianqian loosen her restraints. But at this point, little Azure could no longer hold on. Although she is the guardian of the village's graves, she is still too young and lacks combat experience, eager to prove herself. She was ultimately overbearing in dealing with Yin Mei, who had been consuming essence and blood for many years. Yin Mei was seen grabbing little Azure by the neck. I picked up a chair nearby and smashed it on her. Little Azure then broke free from her grasp. Just as all her attention was focused on the two of us, Miao Qianqian took the opportunity to sneak up from behind and press the stun gun against her, giving her a chilling shock. But Yin Mei's skin is really thick. She toughed out the electric shock for a moment. She surprisingly had no reaction at all. She struck back and knocked down Miao Qianqian. At this moment, little Azure picked up the bell from the ground again. She pressed it firmly against her waist. In this way, we continuously attack her from 3 directions, depleting her energy. Soon she was cornered by us, but just then, a flying head suddenly broke through the window. A flying head quickly fit onto Yin Mei's head. She tried to pull the head out, but it was tightly embedded in her head. The Yin spirit inside crazily sucked on her head, and gradually blood began to flow down her neck. With a snap, the head separated, and Yin Mei died just like that. After killing her, the flying head did not linger and flew away directly. I watched this cruel scene, and it took me a long time to come to my senses. But this is after all a place of right and wrong. I asked Miao Qianqian to call Zhang Tianing and have Sir Zhang come to handle it. Miao Qianqian nodded. She suddenly saw a letter pinned behind the door. It was written in large letters on it. The job of killing is completed. Our grudges have not been settled yet. I will visit you another day. After reading the content of this letter, I also feel somewhat helpless. Not only did I fail to make any money this time, I almost lost my life, and I also offended a Dark Curse master. Truly a losing deal. In 3 days, By Little Snow won't be able to suppress Chunlei's evil spirit anymore. But in these past few days, I haven't found a good solution to the situation. Next, I talked to Little Azure about the origins of Chunlei's evil spirit and the current dilemma of not having found a solution yet. There are 3 spirit-infused tattoos here. They are Zhong Kuei kicking Baku dream eating, and the one just brought back from Miao Qianqian. Each one is full of immense ghostly power. I once thought about finding someone with a strong destiny to shoulder these 3 spirit-infused tattoos to suppress Chunlei, but the only candidate, By Little Snow, is already too busy to spare a moment. After hearing the whole story, Little Azure pointed at himself and said, "Isn't there a person with a strong destiny right in front of you?" Last night in the room of that strange Aunt Yin Mei, I devoured all the evil spirits on the Guanyin statue she worshipped, as well as the power of the witch ghosts from our entire Wulu clan. I should be able to handle these 3 drawings. But these 3 spirit-infused tattoos have never been tried in our lineage before. I'm worried that you might get into trouble. It's okay. Even though the method is a bit rough, but you took in Little Azure, and you said if you can't suppress Chunlei, all of you will die. With Little Azure's home gone, Little Azure doesn't want to lose Brother Yu, and doesn't want to lose another home. I was actually quite moved when she said this. I didn't expect that Little Azure suddenly started drooling, saying that as long as I can eat all the evil spirits on this afterward, it's fine. When I heard this, I was momentarily stunned. So it turns out you did it for this reason. The next day, Little Azure hid in the house, and used their witchcraft powers to sew 3 spirit-infused tattoos together. She made it into a cloak. Next, we are going to save By Little Snow. I rode my beloved small motorcycle. Soon, I arrived at the school with Little Azure. As soon as we arrived in the area, Little Azure felt the horror of this place. I touched her head to comfort her, and told her not to be afraid. We also have a powerful sister with strong magical abilities here. You will be fine. Later, we arrived at the locust tree. My little Snow has been staying here for 5 days. She can't hold on much longer. She asked if I found a solution. If Chinlei can't control his resentment, we will all die. I brought little Azure over and introduced her. Among all the people I've met, she is probably the only one who can match you. My little Snow turned to look at little Azure, and immediately noticed her extraordinary aura. She said that this girl is carrying the burdens and grudges of many people on her shoulders. Such a young age, and not simple at all. It seems she has also gone through the ordeal of the human world in the past. Seeing this, I no longer hesitated and immediately took off the spirit-infused tattoo cloak from my back. I put it on little Azure. Everything is ready. Little Azure is standing in front of the tree. My little Snow is casting a spell and chanting an incantation. A formation is being formed beneath little Azure. She is facing the rage-filled fiend spirit Chinlei. Little Azure is not afraid, murmuring with her eyes closed. The spirit of the Wulu clan. Come out, Yogwai, exterminate demons, save all beings in an instant. The Yin spirit inside little Azure seemed to be summoned. Fly out together. Seeing this scene, even my little Snow couldn't help but sigh. It is truly extraordinary to have a person with such strong demonic power driving the ultimate Yin artifact composed of 3 spirit-infused tattoos. But Chinlei's fiend spirit is still too powerful. Even when facing the numerous heroic souls of the Wulu clan, he is still unmatched. I wanted to help when I saw little Azure in pain, but my little Snow stopped me. My little Snow said he wants to suppress this fiend spirit without causing harm, which is undoubtedly wishful thinking. We are already powerless. Do not disturb her. Now I can only hope that little Azure can hold on. Suddenly little Azure opened twin pupils, burning my soul and giving me ghostly power. Gather the heroic power of the Wulu clan. Coordinate with the formation of the 3 ghost tattoos, and by little Snow. Entrap Chinlei's fiend spirit in the formation, and gradually the situation began to reverse. Chinlei's fiend spirit let out a wail. In the end, it was completely annihilated and disappeared without a trace. Little Azure also fainted due to exhaustion. I quickly rushed up and held her in my arms. Looking at Chinlei, who has already regained consciousness, I asked her, now that she is back in the cycle of reincarnation, if she has any last words. Chinlei shed tears as she spoke her final words. Chengyu, you are a good person. Many years ago, you saved my life, although unintentionally pushing me into a deeper hell. But I don't blame you. This time, you have saved me again. I am finally free. In this life, I can't repay you. If we meet again in the cycle of reincarnation, I will be an ox or a horse for you in the next life. Goodbye. I've left my last words. Leichen can rest assured. This matter finally has a satisfactory conclusion. My little Snow looked at me with some profound meaning and said, I didn't misjudge you. Old Master Cheng's descendant still has some potential. When I heard that she had met my grandfather, I turned to her and asked her what was going on. I didn't expect my little Snow to say, When I was young, your grandfather took us to learn from a great master. Your father was there too, following as an apprentice. Back then, he was a handsome young man in his 20s, very charming and decisive. Upon hearing that she had also met my father, I was originally planning to continue asking further. But my little Snow just waved her hand and said, Your father is dead, just as your grandfather said. It's better for you not to know about his matters. This place is not suitable for a long stay. Let's go. The matter between Chinlei and Zhang Shun has finally come to a close. The sun rises every day as usual, and the world remains cruel. Now it seems that I can survive to protect the important people and things in my life. This is already my greatest fortune. A healer acclaimed for magical healing powers, who is highly praised by everyone, actually came to my tattoo shop today. This is truly a rare occurrence. He is called Chung Huako, and he is colleagues with Su Taoyao. He also heard from Su Taoyao that I can do things that ordinary people cannot do, which is why he came. As soon as I heard that it was the crazy female doctor who introduced him, I had a sense of foreboding. At this moment, little Azure whispered in my ear, "There are many white Yin spirits surrounding this uncle. He is a great person filled with positive energy." My sister said that there are vengeful spirits surrounded by evil butchers, while only truly kind-hearted people who do good deeds will be blessed with so many kind Yin spirits. I nodded to indicate that I understood. I turned to ask Chung Huako if there was anything he needed. Chung Huako hesitated for a while before slowly saying, "Do you have a type of evil curse here that can allow people to share sensory experiences? For example, if one person feels pain, I can also feel it." I am puzzled by such a request, and asked him why he wanted to obtain sensory sharing to feel the pain of others. Chung Huako's tears suddenly burst out of his eyes, and he said with a sad face, 3 months ago, due to a misdiagnosis, I killed my own wife. I have been scared ever since, afraid that I will make a mistake again and kill someone else. So, I hope you can help me feel the pain of the patients. If I can clearly understand where the patient is hurting, where the lesion is, then I will never misdiagnose. As for that kind of pain, I can endure it. Upon hearing his words, I also understood his meaning. I have the relevant skills. I believe he can endure the pain, but I will not take on this business. Because the requirements of this skill are too demanding, it requires the souls of a pair of twins. We cannot kill people just to obtain their souls, right? Where can we find a pair of just deceased twins? When I said this, I felt that he might also find it difficult to proceed. I didn't expect that Chung Huako would be excited and said, "As luck would have it, this morning there was a pregnant woman who had difficulties giving birth at the hospital. A pair of twins were born and died due to lack of oxygen. What do you think about this?" But the moment he said those words, he felt something was wrong. 2 babies died. Why did he feel a moment of joy? He is a doctor who saves lives. He even doubted if he was going crazy. Hearing about such a coincidence, I can't help but have some doubts. I asked him if he was serious, while also thinking, according to little Azure's words, this doctor should undoubtedly be a kind person. If it's really such a coincidence, I can give him a tattoo. In the future, if he can save more people, it can be considered a merit. Chung Huako firmly stated, "Of course, the people who died in the hospital are all documented. You can have someone check. And how could I have known in advance that I would need the souls of a pair of twins? This is a coincidence. You've helped me, and in the future, I'll be able to help more people." I sighed and agreed to his affirmative reply, letting him figure out a way to bring the bodies of the babies over and then sneakily put them back later at night. Soon, Chung Huako brought the bodies of the babies over. Everything is ready. Tattooing begins. The spirit-infused tattoo this time is called the conjoined heart knot, originally a symbol of love that represents incomparable loyalty and love, sharing blessings, and enduring the same pain. After it is inked, as long as you touch each other with your hands, you can sense each other's feelings. You have to endure half of each other's pain. This is why it's called the conjoined heart. I explained the effect of the spirit-infused tattoo to Chung Huako and asked him to think it over. Chung Huako expressed resolutely, "I am willing to bear the suffering of all beings." Since he had no problem, the tattoo officially began. Time flies, and the conjoined heart knot spirit-infused tattoo was quickly completed. The progress of this tattoo went very smoothly, but I couldn't help but feel a bit uneasy. Do you know a doctor who can feel patients' pain? How high can his efficiency in treating patients be? After he finishes tattooing the conjoined heart knot spirit-infused tattoo, Chung Huako starts seeing patients at the hospital as usual. The first patient, who comes and complains of feeling very painful all over and doesn't know the reason. Chung Huako tells him not to worry, asks him to sit down, and checks his pulse first before saying anything. The moment he touched the patient, Chung Huako felt a stabbing pain in his stomach the moment he touched the patient. The patient noticed his unpleasant expression. The patient quickly asked what was wrong. Chung Huako didn't explain, but handed him the diagnosis, asking him to go for a gastroscopy as soon as possible. Maybe it's a stomach perforation. Upon seeing Chung Huako, he made a diagnosis in less than 3 seconds. The patient felt like he was being fooled, but still left with the diagnosis in hand. It's then the next patient's turn. The patient is a child. Chung Huako took the pulse for a moment. He felt the pain in his throat, so he waved his hand and asked the child's father to hurry to get an X-ray. Something seems to be stuck in the throat, possibly due to accidentally swallowing something. The doctor quickly made a diagnosis. Even though the father of the child was somewhat skeptical, he still left with the child. When they saw 2 patients leaving quickly one after another, the other patients waiting outside began to gossip. Some said Chung Huako was confused, while others said his way of making money was unseemly. And at this moment, Chung Huako in the consultation room was already sweating profusely. He did not expect the 2 patients to be so critical, but more importantly, it seemed that the patients were unwilling to believe such a diagnostic result. However, soon the father of the child excitedly rushed in and said, "Dr. Chung, you really are a living deity. My child accidentally swallowed a fishbone while I wasn't paying attention. It was clearly visible on the X-ray. And the first patient you just examined indeed had a stomach perforation after undergoing a colonoscopy. You are truly amazing. Thank you, Chung Huako, for your expertise." Seeing the excited expression on the patient's face, you also smiled with relief. Now, he will never misdiagnose himself again. And the patients outside the door, seeing this scene, also became eager and enthusiastic. Chung Huako, of course, welcomes everyone. He asked them to come in one by one. Don't rush. Just like that, one morning passed quickly. He took pulses from about 100 people, diagnosed each one accurately, and not a single misdiagnosis. But his body gradually started to feel no pain. It seems that the pain he endured exceeded the threshold of his nervous system, leading to excessive sedation of the body. But he didn't mind at all. He felt better this way. This way, he can treat more patients. But as he was taking the pulse of the next patient, he simply touched the patient lightly. The person began to spit out fresh blood and fell down. A living person unexpectedly died like that. The nurse on the side quickly helped him up and said, "The cause of the illness still needs to be investigated. Perhaps it was a sudden heart attack. Anyway, Dr. Chung, please continue to treat the patients and don't delay others. I will handle this matter first." Chung Huako saw a healthy person die suddenly and couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. But he still decided to continue seeking medical treatment. At this point, some greenish mucus had appeared on his hands. The moment he touched the patient, the other person collapsed with a slap. Died on the spot. The other patients who saw this scene, they were all startled. Chung Huako wants to explain. But at this time, green slime had already covered his entire body. Patients saw him turn like this, shouting, "Monster!" He caught one of them, wanting to ask for the reason. But he just grabbed him. The man also died on the spot like the previous 2. Seeing another person dead, the patients began to flee in all directions, yelling that Dr. Chung had killed someone, the hand of death. Whoever he touches dies. Run quickly. Chung Huako dragged his heavy body. He looked in the mirror and found that he had turned into a monster. The next day, I saw news reports about Chung Huako on my phone. Chung Huako, known as the saintly physician, saw over 100 patients in the morning without making a single misdiagnosis. At first, I was happy for him. But the following reports made me somewhat worried. 3 people died inexplicably. Dr. Chung went missing. How could he be a great doctor one second and then disappear the next? At this moment, I suddenly heard someone calling me at the door. Turning my head, I saw that it was Su Taoyao. Seeing that there was no one else inside the room, Su Taoyao waved his hand towards the person behind him, signaling them to come in. Immediately after, a person with green slime on their foot and a foul smell emanating from their body walked in. Seeing the man's appearance, we were all startled. But when he spoke, I was stunned. This voice is Chung Huako. How could he have changed like this? Su Taoyao replied as he busily closed the door. I'm not sure why he became like this either. He only said that whoever he touches now will die, and his body is also rotting. We barely managed to escape from the hospital, and now no one knows he is here. Chung Huako said with difficulty. I feel like every cell in my body is dying. These so-called hands of a saint have now become hands of death. Whoever they touch will die. Seeing him change like this, I instantly understood the conjoined heart not spirit-infused tattoo, shared perception, shared pain. But he treated over 100 patients in one morning. The accumulation of suffering from them led to this situation. Just as I was pondering what to do, Zhao, the half-immortal, suddenly made a startling statement. This situation is the 5 decays of the Deva. You are transcending the tribulation and on your way to becoming an immortal. This man was treating 100 patients without making a single misdiagnosis just a moment ago. His hands are those of a saint. The next moment, his hands turned into the hands of a grim reaper that brings death upon touch. Zhao, the half-immortal, also said that he is undergoing the 5 decays of the Deva to transcend the calamity. He is about to become immortal soon. According to legend, practicing Taoism leads to immortality. The 5 decays of the Deva are only for the saints with great cultivation and great wisdom. The 5 calamities they must experience before achieving enlightenment and becoming immortals. That's probably what Chung Huako looks like now. The sages feel the changes of nature, empathize with the sufferings of sentient beings, and embrace the tribulations. During this process, the body is covered in filth and emits a foul odor, resembling a lifeless aura. If someone comes into contact with a sage going through this tribulation, they will be infected by the aura of decay and perish on the spot. Cannot survive the 5 decays of the Deva if the saints die out. If you can survive this calamity, you will be able to ascend to immortality in broad daylight and become a celestial being. According to the ancients, understanding immortality starts with understanding death. Only by comprehending death can one truly understand life. He is like a dead person now. Can he see through life and death, come back to life, and attain immortality? Let's continue to observe. Regarding the explanation of Zhao, the half-immortal, although Su Taoyao did not understand, from a scientific perspective, she believes that if one surpasses the human pain threshold and transcends death, cells and genes may break down. If one manages to endure, they may evolve into some kind of monster. Chung Huako tore off his falling facial skin while saying, I never expected that my life of doing good would end up like this. Now, all the pain has awakened and rages within my body. I never thought of becoming immortal, but I fear that after I die, I will become a vengeful evil spirit. Upon hearing this, Zhao, the half-immortal, solemnly said, You don't need to worry about that. Legend has it that the 5 decays of the Deva, everything will decay. It's not just the body that cannot withstand the test. Even the soul will turn to ashes and smoke, dissipating into thin air. In this way, I can feel at ease. Even though all my organs are in pain right now, pain to the point of death, I can finally die, putting an end to everything. Seeing Chung Huako in such pain, Zhao, the half-immortal, felt a bit unable to bear it and asked if I could try to think of a way to help him get through this tribulation. I want to help, but I am also powerless. At this moment, Little Azure walked out wearing that spirit-infused tattoo cape and said, I'll give it a try. I can help share Uncle Cheng's pain, alleviate his transformative suffering, and allow him to retain some strength and will to fight against this disaster. I'm still very worried about Chung Huako, who is now at the mercy of death. Little Azure, who is sensible in front of me, may be in danger by doing so. But Little Azure firmly stated, There is a complete spirit of the Wulu clan protecting my body. The soul is 100 times stronger than an ordinary person's and won't be easily killed. However, Chung Huako did not want anyone to sacrifice for him anymore. He told Little Azure not to force it. Maybe his death would be the best ending. But Little Azure firmly said, "No! You are a good person. Little Azure wanted to save you." After saying this, Little Azure resolutely grasped the hand of the Grim Reaper, Chung Huako, without hesitation. The next second, the aura of decay began to spread on her face. Chung Huako couldn't bear to see her in pain. He immediately let go of her hand and said, "Forget it. You don't have to make these pointless sacrifices. I feel warmed by your kindness. I have traveled through this world, and it's been very worthwhile. Goodbye everyone, thank you all." As Chung Huako finished speaking, his body began to gradually disintegrate. The whole person started to melt gradually. In the end, he turned into a puddle of green liquid. He ultimately did not transcend the 5 decays of the Deva. The next day, Miao Qianqian and I saw the latest report on TV. Recently, the police have confirmed the news of Dr. Chung Huako's disappearance. Dr. Chung Huako has saved countless lives diligently throughout his life, but unknowingly contracted an infectious disease that led to the deaths of 3 people. It is truly regrettable. After reading the entire report, I couldn't help but sigh. Good people don't get good rewards. This world is really unfair. He saved lives his whole life, but ended up accidentally killing his own patient. Dr. Cheng's soul must not have found peace. We should burn more paper ingots for him when we have the time. How fake can this man be? He lay down on the sofa without saying more than a couple of words after entering the door. He kept saying that his body felt like it was going to be hollowed out. I saw that he looked pale and thin, like he was suffering from kidney deficiency, but I didn't bother him about it. The man's name is P4-Manhwa. According to him, he and several friends live in this shared apartment building where men and women reside together. However, recently all the men inside seem to be weak and emaciated, appearing yellow and thin. Therefore, he suspects if he has encountered ghosts. So, he asked us to help him take a look. Upon reaching the destination, Little Azure held my hand and suddenly pointed at the apartment building in front of us, saying, "This building looks like a coffin." Upon hearing Little Azure's words, I suddenly felt that something was off too. This apartment building does indeed look like a coffin. When Inchi is exposed, there must be something secretive. No matter what demons or monsters may appear, they are all just snacks for Little Azure. There's nothing to be afraid of. Afterwards, we took the elevator. We arrived at the room where P4-Manhwa was staying, and the room was filled with an atmosphere of revelry. When she saw me standing at the doorway, a woman named Miss Dong with a thin waist came out and asked, "Ah Hua, did you bring friends to play?" P4-Manhwa blushed and replied shyly, "Yes." He then escorted us into the room, saying that we should enter first, and he would join us shortly. After entering the room, P4-Manhwa sat on the bed and said with a terrified expression, "I have a bad feeling about this. In our shared apartment, there are 3 women and 3 men. We usually have a great time together, but I suspect that there is a dead person among us. Every Saturday night, we are always together playing. But every time after playing, I feel like my body has been emptied out. It doesn't feel right. If this continues, I might die." As I say this, I glanced outside and saw the 2 men who were still having fun. Now they are foaming at the mouth and lying on the ground. The vitality of the 2 men has been transferred to Miss Dong's mouth. At the same time, we have been discovered. Miss Dong waved at us. She then went into a room on her own, even offering herself willingly when she saw us. I don't need to keep you in suspense any longer. How can one catch tiger cubs without entering the tiger's den? In any case, let's catch up first before discussing further. Upon entering the room, she saw a man sitting on a chair with Miss Dong's head on his lap. I was also startled when I saw this scene. But the man didn't care at all, lifting Miss Dong's head and sucking in the essence he had just obtained, while reassuring her not to panic as it was just a wine glass. This sweet wine is not easily obtained, as it is a condensation of the essence of people. It is harvested once every 7 days, which can be described as laborious. Does Mr. Chung want to have a drink with me? Seeing this scene, little Asher said that the wine glass is not dead. To be precise, the soul is inside the man's head. I asked him who he really was. What kind of evil curse is this? The man smiled lightly and slowly said, I am Gwiguli, heir of the Tomb Raider lineage. Beheading to make a wine glass, using a human head as a Yin artifact to absorb the essence of men, refining it into fine wine. Drinking it can strengthen the body. I know you because of my junior brother. When I heard it was because my junior brother knew me, the first thing that came to mind was a human head. You make human head cups, and there is also a human head lantern. The dark curse master surnamed Hua is your junior brother. Mr. Chung is indeed smart. Gwiguli stood up slowly. I immediately pointed at the head-shaped wine glass in his hand and reprimanded. The soul of this woman's head is still in her head. Even in death, she can't rest in peace. You have to go steal men's vitality to drink his wine. It's simply outrageous and unreasonable. But Gwiguli said it was not wrong. He said, I turned her into a head-shaped wine glass because I love her. It was because of her that I became estranged from my junior brother. Mr. Chung, I won't beat around the bush. The reason I brought you here this time is to ask for your help. As far as I know, you have some grievances with my junior brother, Hua Howie. My junior brother said he wants to settle the score with you. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. How about this? I'll pay you 1 million to disable both of my junior brother's hands. What do you think? I'll be right back.